And on to a breaking news, Sri Lanka Supreme Court has delivered its verdict on the dissolution of Parliament. And it is a big setback for the President and the new Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The 7-judge bench verdict means that President Sirisena has to reconvene Parliament. Ranil Wickremesinghe, he is back as Prime Minister for now. That's latest coming from Sri Lanka. And Ashwin Hamathaga, Wion correspondent, is joining us on the phone line from Colombo. Ashwin, what's the latest on this and how big will be a change this change would mean?
Well, this is a major victory for the forces who are rallying against President Maithripala Sirisena's decision to dissolve the parliament and appointing former President Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister. And well, it's a major victory for the forces, and it could be a starting point for the entire nation to come back to senses and look forward for a developing Sri Lanka in the 2017. And around 4 p.m. this afternoon, 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court started announcing the decision on the petitions filed against the dissolution of Parliament. So Chief Justice Nalin Pereira delivered the final decision, and he stated President has violated the petitioner's rights through his decision to dissolve the Parliament. And this is very important. CJ has also stated that President cannot dissolve the Parliament at his own will or before the lapse of 4.5 years. And in case, if it is necessary to dissolve the Parliament before 4.5 years, CJ has mentioned that there's a need to have a Parliament resolution with 2/3 majority passed before dissolving the Parliament. This is a major victory.
We're joined by Rajiva Wijesinha, political analyst and former Minister of Higher Education, Colombo. A very good evening to you, Rajiv. I would like to ask you, what does it mean for Sri Lanka and its people?
I couldn't hear your particular question properly, but with regard to the decision, my own view is that the Constitution is ambiguous on this issue. I myself felt that the President does have the power because otherwise the 19th Amendment brought a very narrow restriction on him, whereas it also had a separate clause also reintroduced saying that he had the power notwithstanding anything else to dissolve. But on the other hand, when he took this step, I thought it was a wrong decision, and I felt that it was much better to have tried to work things out in terms of the present Parliament itself. I think one mustn't confuse the two issues. One is the dismissal of the former Prime Minister, which hasn't been challenged in the courts. That also should have been, because there again you also have much ambiguity. And then the second, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was unable to prove a majority, was this dissolution, which seemed a very hasty measure. And I myself was against the general election at this point because I felt that it would lead to an unhealthy majority for what we call the SLPP, the new party. And I think it's important both to have a strong government and a strong opposition. So I hope now that the President will work out a good Prime Minister who can command the confidence of the House. He has made it clear he won't appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe, and until that dismissal is challenged in court, that decision will stand. But he must find someone who commands the confidence of the House. I think this is the time for what he would call a compromise. And the other factor is that the country has managed very well without what is termed the government. What has happened now is we don't have politicians in government, which is a damn good thing, actually, given the mess they've made of this country. And we have a government running by administrations, which is, of course, entirely what an executive presidency should have. And politicians should only be involved in making policy and legislation and in monitoring the finances. So let's hope this leads to a good outcome.
All right, my colleague Ramesh will take over from here. Ramesh, back to you.
Thank you, Sumit. I still have my guest, Rajiv Wijesinha, joining us from Colombo, and also my colleague, Ashwin Hamathaga, who is on the phone line from Colombo as well. Ashwin, if I can come to you first now, let's talk about the text, the subtext, and the context of this court decision or the court verdict. Let's talk a bit about the three dramatis personae, so to speak. President Maithripala Sirisena, and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. What does this court order mean for the three of these gentlemen?
Well, according to what we see in the grassroots, the ground level, people were against the unconstitutional move of dissolving the parliament first, then again appointing Mr. Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister, going against the constitution as they saw it. And, well, it will be, according to sources, it will be a bit of a disaster for President Maithripala Sirisena as well as Mr. Rajapaksa, because they never expected this sort of a decision. And they were so strong and they thoroughly believed that the decision will be in favor of them. But this is actually a turning point. And according to the 19th Amendment and the Constitution, the Supreme Court has delivered its decision.
And also talking about the text of the judgment, Ashwin, the text is very clear, very pithy and precise. It says, and again I quote, that the government and the president cannot dissolve the parliament before the expiry of 4.5 years. But if it wants to dissolve the parliament before this time period, then it will require a 2/3 majority. Now, this was a unanimous decision taken by a 7-judge bench. Now, talking about President Maithripala Sirisena in particular, Ashwin, what might be an honourable way out of the current impasse which has continued to this day from the 26th of October this year? So what's the honourable way out for President Sirisena?
According to sources, the United National Party lawmakers are to meet this evening around 7 o'clock to discuss the way forward. And now they are looking forward to reinstate and to have Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister. So this is on top of the decision, the Parliament's decision yesterday, the vote of confidence with 117 votes received by Mr. Wickremesinghe. So all these UNP lawmakers and the supporting parties are looking forward to have Mr. Wickremesinghe appointed.
Ashwin, do hold your thought. We are now joined by Mr. Harsha De Silva, a UNP lawmaker who is joining us on the phone line from Colombo as we speak. Thank you, Mr. Silva, for joining us on Wion World is One. Now, let's talk about the import or the significance of this court judgment for the UNP, for Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe and for the party lawmakers in general. In your estimation, has the court verdict come with a shot in the arm for the UNP and Mr. Wickremesinghe?
Yes, absolutely. You see, we never doubted the ruling because it was very clear in the 19th Amendment that one needed 2/3 majority, and the President did not have the constitutional authority to dissolve the Parliament. And we are really very happy that the judiciary has been impartial and independent and has been very strong, giving a unanimous 7-0 ruling in favor of the Constitution and against the President in this case.
Mr. Harsha, do hold your thoughts. I want to read out Mr. Wickremesinghe's tweet issued just moments ago. He says, and I quote, "We trust that the President will promptly respect the judgment of the courts. The legislature, judiciary and the executive are equally important pillars of a democracy, and the checks and balances that they provide are crucial to ensuring the sovereignty of its citizens," unquote. This is a tweet put out by Ranil Wickremesinghe just moments ago. If I can follow it up from Mr. Wickremesinghe's tweet, Mr. Harsha, what might be the honourable way out of this political crisis? It's been going on, dragging on since the 26th of October. We have clearly seen a situation where Sri Lanka has one Prime Minister too many, and Mr. Wickremesinghe, for his part, has won 3 trust votes. So where do we go from here?
Yes, in fact, we are all at the Prime Minister's office, and we hope the President would now, like the Prime Minister tweeted, act immediately and go ahead and appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe as the legitimate Prime Minister of this country. As you know, we showed a majority, 117 in favor of Mr. Wickremesinghe yesterday. So there is no need to doubt anymore who's got the confidence in the House. and therefore he must appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe within the next few hours.
Indeed, Mr. Harsha, do stay on if you will. Also, I'll ask my colleague Ashwin to stay on for some more time. In the meantime, we're now joined by another guest, Sulochana Ramya M, who is joining us again on Wion World is One. Your reactions first to the court order. What is the import of this verdict? Will it help resolve the current impasse obtaining in Sri Lanka today?
Yes, it is definitely a landmark ruling today, a few minutes ago, and we could hear so much of firecrackers being lit in Colombo welcoming the Supreme Court decision. And of course, this ruling was very important. Basically, to run the government, you need a parliament, and then you need a prime minister for that. And today, the court ruling is has been very, very decision taken where the government has to run, get to the parliament, have its members brought in, appoint, reinstate a prime minister. Probably it has to be none other than Ranil Wickremesinghe, and run the show, and then run it for nearly 4.5 years complete, and then to call for a 2/3 majority to vote for election. That is the procedure, and we expect that that decision will be taken soon, and call off the standoff that is going on for the last 1 month and few days. That has come to an end today.
Indeed, you make some very interesting and valid points, but do stay on, Sulochana and Harsha De Silva. I want to, tweets are coming in thick and fast. The latest tweet this time from Namal Rajapaksa, and he says, and I quote, "We respect the decision of Sri Lanka Supreme Court, despite the fact that we have reservations regarding its interpretation. We will continue to stand alongside those calling for a parliamentary election, without which there is no real justice for the people of Sri Lanka," unquote. This is Namal Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa's son, and a lawmaker who is tweeting after the court verdict. So we have heard from Ranil Wickremesinghe and from Namal Rajapaksa, both having a contrarian position. Namal calling for fresh elections, Ranil insisting that the president respect the court verdict and do the necessary things going forward. So I want to go across to my guests, Harsha De Silva and Sulochana, one more time. Harsha, take us through what lies ahead. Where do we go from here in terms of finding a solution out of this political crisis? All eyes are now on President Sirisena, isn't it?
Yes, because he will have to, without delay, appoint the Prime Minister and then subsequently a cabinet. We are running out of time because by middle next week we have to pass what is called a vote on account since the appropriation bill or the budget couldn't be passed this year. So for the government to start spending money from 1 January, next week we got to get this through Parliament. After that, Parliament vacation, Christmas, and nothing will happen. So there, and present vote on account. That is the most urgent thing we need to do because we got debt to repay. We got the country has to country's wheels. The economy has to tick. So that is the most important thing. We hope that the president will accept this ruling and without any further delay appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister and a cabinet. Now the issue is, are we going to form a yet another national government? Or are we going to form a purely UNF government? And let me tell you the sentiments here are that we go for a purely UNF government without any backing of Mr. Sirisena's team.
And is that a practical solution, you think? A UNF government without President Sirisena on your side?
Well, I mean, if they want to join us, they can become part of our alliance. And
are you inviting him and his aides to join the UNF or not?
Yes, we are. If they wish to, they can join our alliance. And we will create a UNF government. So the UNF means UNP plus our alliance partners. If the SLFP wants to come and join our alliance, they are welcome to. But I don't think the sentiment among the members of parliament, I can't speak on behalf of my boss, the Prime Minister.
Indeed.
But the general feeling is that, no, we should do this on our own. And like I said, if some of them wishes to join us, those are open. Come join us
Right.
in a part of the alliance, and then we can form a UNS government. They can also be part of the UNS.
Indeed. So that's the big breaking news here on Wion World this moment as we speak. Harsha De Silva, a sitting UNP lawmaker, telling Wion World that he, at least in his personal estimation, would prefer a UNF government with the UNP and its allies. At the same time, the SLFP, led by President Sirisena, is welcome to join their coalition if they choose to do so. But in the meantime, Harsha, do stay on. I have another tweet coming up for the benefit of our viewers, this time from Sagala Ratnayaka. He tweets, and I quote, "The Supreme Court has officially reversed the October 26 coup. President Maithripala Sirisena must now respect the Supreme Court ruling and reappoint Ranil Wickremesinghe, who commands a clear majority in Parliament, as the Prime Minister. Hats off to all judges who upheld democracy and the rule of law," unquote. So we have heard from Ranil Wickremesinghe, we are hearing from Sagala Ratnayaka, we've also heard from Namal Rajapaksa. So tweets coming in thick and fast, and Harsha De Silva continues to stay with us. But if I can bring in my colleague Ashwin one more time in this discussion. Ashwin, we've heard from all three, the dramatist person, so to speak. We heard from Ranil, we've heard from Sagala Ratnayaka, we're hearing from Namal as well. And Harsha seems to indicate that, at least in his personal estimation, he would like to see the UNF, along with the UNP and its allies, go it alone in the new dispensation. Is that something which you think is eminently doable under the circumstances?
Exactly, you're absolutely right. I do agree with Dr. Harsha De Silva, because it is the public pulse in Colombo at the moment, because people, of course, were clueless what's going to happen after October 26th decision of President Sirisena. Everything got stuck, and the entire country was held at political crisis, and especially the state sector was not functioning well. And the biggest issue we were looking forward to have is the 2019, because there was no budget passed. So everybody was looking forward for a change, the change which will take the country forward. So correctly, Dr. Harsha mentioned that it is President's duty to immediately appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister and allow him to form his government and take forward the country. That is what the public wants.
Indeed. And Harsha De Silva, if I can come to you one more time now, with the benefit of hindsight, there's been several weeks have gone since October 26. Many people have called it or described it as a coup. Now, in your estimation, looking back at the weeks gone by, do you think that President Sirisena tried to bite off more than he can chew, that he now needs to retreat and make an honorable exit and allow possibly Ranil Wickremesinghe once again in the Prime Minister's office?
Yeah, I agree with you, except the point that you made. He needs to have an honorable exit. I mean, he needs to have an honorable exit from this crisis.
So how do you propose, Harsha, to give President Sirisena an honorable exit?
Well, I mean, there is, if you try to interpret the judgment, if from what we see, the unanimous judgment is that the President violated the Constitution, and it is illegal. It opens up a Pandora's box now. I mean, there are multiple options. I mean, has the President done something that may lead to his impeachment? Will the MPs think about
Sorry, I want to hold your thoughts there. Did you say impeachment or possibly impeaching Sirisena?
No, what I'm saying is, if the President has violated the Constitution, if what he has done is illegal, then multiple options open up. Now, I don't think at all that anyone is going to go down that road. No one is interested in doing so. But this is a serious indictment on the President's actions. So whether he bit more than he could chew, certainly yes, he did. Did he get the right advice? certainly he did not get the right advice. Was he led up the garden path by those who wanted to come back to power at any cost so that their personal legal issues could be sorted out? I think absolutely yes. So I feel for the president. He's a good man. We worked with him. You know, we went around the country with him. We created a new equation here for both parties to work together. We try to do good things. We strengthen democracy. You know, the reason why we got this judgment is because of Maithripala Sirisena. It's because we worked together. We created this good governance government in the last 3.5 years.
Right.
So it's a sad irony, in fact, you know, how what the good things he has done has come back to haunt him. But that's the way it is.
But Harsha, you say that President Sirisena is a good man, but you seem to blame his advisors for the present crisis. Now, talk us a bit about the relationship that exists today between Ranil Wickremesinghe and Maithripala Sirisena. Is the relationship completely broken? There's no communication, or you think this relationship can still be salvaged going forward?
Of course, we have to. We have to work together. You know, it cannot be just based on personal likes and dislikes. The president will have to deal with the issue, and will have to sort out his personal issues. And the Prime Minister will have to do so himself. But let me tell you, the Prime Minister has never in this entire episode once blamed the President. He has been very cordial, he has been diplomatic, he has been a gentleman, he has, you know, kept above the fray, even though the President continued to, you know, make all kinds of allegations. He never did. So you know, therefore, he has no grudges. He's willing to work with him, and I hope the President understands that.
All right, Harsha, I want to take your point across to my colleague Ashwin Hemadagama, who is standing by patiently on the phone line from Colombo. Ashwin, we heard Harsha say that Sirisena is a good man, but Harsha blames Sirisena's advisors for precipitating a political crisis, and that he still hopes the two gentlemen, Sirisena and Wickremesinghe, can still work together going forward. Now, in your estimation, Ashwin, looking back at the weeks gone by, what do you think made Sirisena do what he did on the 26th of October? Was it personal ambition, personal insecurities, ego tussle with Ranil Wickremesinghe, or simply bad advice?
I do agree with Dr. Harsha because actually President Sirisena was informed badly and was given wrong information and wrong advices. That could be the key reason that he took this wrong decision. And now, as a result of his wrong decision, more and more people are criticizing Sirisena for his unconstitutional conduct. People, of course, see his actions as a clear violation of the Constitution, especially the 19th Amendment. So, Sirisena's conduct, which was criticized at different platforms across the country for over 6 weeks, so it could lead to an impeachment in the days to come. If I heard correctly, yesterday at Parliament, the JVP said that they might go forward with or without the help of UNP and the UPFA to remove Sirisena. So that's the realistic situation.
Right. If I can just take a moment or two to recap for the benefit of our viewers who might just be tuning in. This is the news we are following here on Wion World is One. The 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka has passed a unanimous verdict just moments ago. The court has held that the parliament cannot be dissolved before 4.5 years. But if there is a need to dissolve parliament before that time period, in that case, the resolution can only be passed with a 2/3 majority. Now, this is a unanimous judgment, and it has immense significance for the current political crisis obtaining in Sri Lanka today as we speak. And we have with me Harsha De Silva of the UNP on the phone line from Colombo, and also my colleague Ashwin, who is standing by patiently again on the phone line from Colombo. But in the meantime, if we can just run through the tweets that are coming in thick and fast from Colombo, from various political players and actors in this political drama playing itself out in Colombo. If I can begin with Ranil Wickremesinghe, who has tweeted, and I quote, "We trust that the President will promptly respect the judgment of the courts. The legislature, judiciary and the executive are equally important pillars of a democracy, and the checks and balances that they provide are crucial to ensuring the sovereignty of its citizens," unquote. Then came a tweet from Namal Rajapaksa, the son of Mahinda Rajapaksa, and Namal is himself a sitting lawmaker. He tweets, and I quote again, "We respect the decision of Sri Lanka Supreme Court despite the fact that we have reservations regarding its interpretation. We will continue to stand alongside those calling for a parliamentary election, without which there is no real justice for the people of Sri Lanka," unquote. And finally, the tweet from Sagar Ratnayaka, who says, and again I quote, "The Supreme Court has officially reversed the October 26 coup. President Sirisena must now respect the Supreme Court ruling and reappoint Ranil Wickremesinghe, who commands a clear majority in Parliament, as the Prime Minister. Hats off to all judges who upheld democracy and the rule of law," unquote. All right, I'm told we are now joined by senior journalist N. Ram, who is joining us from Chennai, from the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. Mr. Ram, thank you for joining us on Wion World is One. Now, we've seen this political drama unfold itself before our very own eyes. In the 26th of October, it's been weeks and weeks of political uncertainty in a country, in our immediate neighborhood, which is of vital importance from India's perspective. Now, in your estimation, how significant of a setback would this Supreme Court order be for President Maithripala Sirisena?
Yeah, I think it's a huge blow, and I don't see how Sirisena can maintain any semblance of legitimacy after this. Everything he did after he made that disastrous move to unseat an elected prime minister with a clear majority, I think every move has been bad in terms of constitutional law, in terms of policy, every bit of common sense. And this is a wonderful judgment. It was not unexpected, except perhaps the unanimity of it, because I mean the constitutional provision is very, very clear in so many words. You can't dissolve Parliament before 4.5 years, you know, I think it's 7 times Ranil Wickremesinghe has proved that he has the majority in the House, and the President. It's incredible that he's disregarded this, so now he's been checkmated, and I think, I mean, he has to reverse every outrageous thing that he has done since then, and I hope that Mr. Rajapaksa, who was dragged into this perhaps, you know, over-ambitious, will now step down and enable a return to normality. They let them, of course, agitate for parliament elections and so on. That's their prerogative, but they can't use it hiding behind the presidency or sitting on the lap of the president. So I think that must go, and I think they've gained nothing from it. They've probably lost out. Mr. Rajapaksa is a mass leader, particularly among the Sinhalese, and I think for him to go along with it was extremely unwise. They've also done, you know, they've used strong-arm tactics outside and also in Parliament. I think all that should disappear now gradually. And of course, the president, the best course for the president would be to resign, but he's not going to do that.
All right, so N. Ram there saying that the best course for Sirisena would be to resign from the post of president. Now, you almost, you know, answered the second question I was about to ask you, the same question that I asked Harsha De Silva, who's joining us on the phone line from Colombo. Now, is Sirisena's resignation the only honorable way out of this current political impasse, Mr. Ram?
Not necessarily, because he has been checkmated. So even if he continues to be president, he has to recognize the fact that the UNP leader has the majority. And I would also give a lot of credit to the Tamil National Alliance, and particularly its leadership, Mr. R. Samandan, ably assisted by Sumantaran and others. I think they don't necessarily agree with everything that the UNP or the SLM does,
right,
or the new party, but they took a principled stand, and I think it's their backing that has enabled Mr. Maithripala and his allies to withstand the assault,
right,
the assault extra constitutional means and so on. So I think Tamil parties, I would say, have been the backbone. Of course, the JVP also took a good stand, although they will not positively support a Ranil-led government. We know that they abstained, but the abstention was quite helpful in Parliament. So I think they also deserve credit. But primarily, I think the people who stood firm, apart from the UNP itself and its loyal allies, are the Tamil parties. And I think it's time that those interested in democracy in Sri Lanka recognized it and acknowledged this crucial role played by the Tamil politicians. Showed great sagacity, particularly
right,
Mr. Samandan. You know, there must have been all kinds of pressures. This is an opportunity you can exploit in various ways, but the hats off to the principled stand, an effective stand they took. I think that should also be recognized. But now I think the Tamil parties have also had conversations with the president. I know that the leadership has had, and I think they've suggested very constructive ways, because they also had some respect for the president and the way he reached out to the Tamils. That also must be recognized in all fairness. Something went wrong in his head, constitutionally speaking. He got the wrong advice. He made the wrong move. I would say it was acratic. Acrasia in Greek philosophy is to do something you know to be wrong.
right,
To do something that you know to be not in your interest. So why do it?
indeed.
That's a big question. So I think all that has to be done. But again, I'd be looking to the Tamil parties, the TNA leadership, for some help to undo the damage that has been done. But a great day for democracy in Sri Lanka and for the whole of South Asia.
All right, so there you heard it, N. Ram saying it's a great day for democracy in Sri Lanka and South Asia in general. He also says that the Supreme Court has checkmated Sirisena and that Sirisena would do well to cut his losses and probably resign from the post of president. But that is easier said than done, because the crisis does not seem to end anytime soon.